and welcome to Adamson Police Products Product Review. My name is London and I'm happy to share with you today's review of the Steiner 4-16x50 Tactical Rifle Scope. This is a brand new scope. We're very excited. We had our first look at it at the SHOT Show this year, 2012. Now there's only so much you can tell at the SHOT Show. Obviously it's a gigantic building, it has lighting issues and so on. We needed to get this on a gun, get it into realistic field conditions, and evaluate what the scope's made of, see if it lives up to the hype, and get some impression from some guys with some experienced eyes. So, before we get terribly far, I just wanted to give my quick rant on optics in general, why there are less expensive optics and more expensive optics, and what the real difference is functionally. Every optic that's magnified is designed to give you a bigger image, magnify the image of what's downrange, and they certainly all do that. The difference between the cheaper optics and the really fine optical instruments is that the finer made ones will actually allow you to see not just further but better. They'll allow your brain and eyes to do everything they can to perceive the best possible picture in terms of color trueness, what we call chromatic aberrations or lack thereof, and the actual resolution, and that has to do with the lens grinding techniques, the amount of dispersion in the glass itself, how the glass was sourced, how it was coated and ground, and so on. All these little nuances go into the resolution so that you can actually not only see a license plate but read it very far away. And thirdly, low light capability. The ability to see in low light is a capability that good quality optics excel in, and poor quality optics, well, they're just dreadful. They're very dark and difficult to see. So the good quality optics will allow you to see kind of like night vision in low light night conditions, but without electronics. And then lastly is the fatigue factor. Inexpensive or cheaply made glass gives you a headache. It's just not easy to use. A finely crafted binocular or scope will allow you to stay on scope as an operator for extended periods of time without lots of eye fatigue and headaches and so on. So less fatigue, more usability, and definitely a lot more bang for your buck. So when you're looking at optics, consider these things into the price. Also, when you factor in the fact that it's going to last longer, let's face it, you get what you pay for to a large degree. So, just some food for thought. And a quick word on Steiner. This is a company that hardly needs any introduction. They've been making fine quality binoculars since the 40s, and they are the prestigious provider of the world's militaries, bar none. Nobody is even a close second place. And this is since the 40s, so that's quite an act to follow. They do that because their products hold up and they're a joy to use. If you're a Steiner owner, you know what we're talking about. Anyway, let's get right into it and have a look at the 4-16x50. The fit and finish of this scope, as you can see, is quite nice. Everything looks and feels absolutely perfect. The clicks on the windage and elevation knob are very positive, not too stiff and certainly not loose. They give you a good indication whether or not you're looking, or if you happen to be operating in low light or with night vision equipment. In addition, as you can see, the 34mm main tube gives it a nice beefy construction. A big main tube like this not only makes the scope stronger and more resistant to damage, but it also gives more room for the internals, the erector system, to function and move over a greater span. So you can really range out further with the enhanced distance that you can adjust for windage and elevation. We were able to shoot this one out to 1,000 with a zero cant base, no problems at all. When you open up the box, you will see, along with a lens tissue and an adjustment Allen wrench, a nice simple manual. The manual has what you need, which is how to use the scope, and not what you don't need, which is 20 pages of useless, silly warnings. An introduction, information on adjusting the eyepiece, parallax, also known as the side focus, your windage elevation adjustments, how to use the zero stop, using and understanding the excellent illumination system, some care and maintenance, and some tips on mounting the scope. And then on the back page, information on the reticle on the scope that you have purchased, with accurate subtensions in detail, and then some references for what those subtensions mean in different scales. For example, milliradians, inches, as well as centimeters. So you've got both your fractional and your metric scales, and of course detailed information on some of the other parameters of the scope. Illumination on this scope is controlled with the 11 position rheostat on the left hand side, which is built into the same parallax adjustment knob. In between all those 11 settings are off positions as well, which is very convenient. The entire reticle is illuminated, and in this first picture the illumination is on and the scope is set to power number 5. So the scope reticle is pretty small because it is a front focal plane, so in low power the reticle looks quite small. And then in the next picture here, I've zoomed in to maximum power, so now the reticle is quite large and you can see the detail of the illumination, which is obviously very nice and illuminates every aspect of the reticle for easy engagement as well as for easy ranging in all lighting conditions. Now the scope is mounted up on rifle and we're ready to get going. First, a quick look at a couple of very important controls: the power selector ring and the reticle focus. The power selector has a small rubber knob or a lever attached to it, which is really handy because you can operate the scope without any hesitation wearing gloves. Something that I noticed this last winter is a big deal with some scopes that don't have that. It can be really a pain to operate the power adjustment ring, especially if it's a bit stiff. But that little projection allows you to do it nice and easy, and it doesn't seem to get in the way either. It's not long enough to be a problem. It also allows you to determine whether the scope is on low power or high power or somewhere in between without even looking. I could be, let's say, looking through a pair of binoculars or a spotting scope. I could just reach over and feel, and I can tell where my scope setting is for power. Additionally, when you make the power adjustment, it does not rotate the eyepiece. The eyepiece stays put, and I really like that. And speaking of the eyepiece, the objective there has the reticle focus on it. Nice and simple. You just rotate that little diopter and you can bring that focus of the reticle itself into a perfect, sharp and crisp focus. Atmospheric conditions for the day: 804 millibars and pretty stable. Temperature was 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're shooting at an altitude of about 6,250 feet. And this is what we're engaging. Way off in the distance there at 930 yards is an IPSC steel plate target. You didn't think we were going to shoot this at 100 yards, did you? I mean, this is supposed to be a really top-of-the-line rifle scope, so we wanted to give it a world-class workout, so hence the very long distances here. And here is a through-the-scope picture at the 930-yard mark. Those plate targets are, one is a full-size IPSC plate, full-size human torso, and the other is about a 1 minute of angle rectangular plate. The camera was just simply held up to the ocular lens, and unfortunately it wasn't able to capture the quality of the image that you can see with the naked eye, but I did my best. In the next picture here, I've zoomed in a bit with the program so that you can see a little bit better some of the contrast and some of the resolution. Yes, you can actually spot individual bullet impacts at 930 yards, and it was quite simple to do. In fact, what was really neat is you could stay on gun, on scope, and on target all at the same time and watch your own impacts on steel, because the exit pupil on the scope is of generous proportions. With many other scopes that I've used, because the exit pupil is small, you lose acquisition of the target, so then you have to get back on it. With this setup, this is a really comfortable scope to use. You stay on target, you squeeze off the round, you watch your own round impact, you can make your own corrections, you can essentially be your own spotter because it's so easy to stay on target. And I tell you what, nothing beats watching your own impacts on steel at darn near 1,000 yards. That's just a fantastic thing and says a lot about the capability of this particular scope. We were, needless to say, very impressed.
Okay, send it. Left 3/10. Send it. Hit.
As we continued to shoot well into the late afternoon and early evening, the sun angle got pretty extreme. In fact, to the point where the sun was shining directly onto the objective lens. And we did that on purpose because we wanted to test the scope's light baffling, which is a design feature that is designed to mitigate incoming stray light rays from bouncing around inside the scope's internal architecture. Happy to say that the baffling on the Steiner was very, very good. We were able to continue shooting and still see the target clearly, although not quite as clear, understandably, considering the extreme light angles that we're almost shooting directly into the sun. Obviously, with a short sunshade, this would be even better, and I would definitely advise, in shooting conditions like this, to put on maybe a 2.5 inch sunshade, which is a easily accomplished task. Because of the great distances involved in our testing day, as well as the gusty wind conditions, we were able to give the wind and elevation tracking a real workout on the scope, which we really wanted to do. Adjusting radically from one direction to the other and then returning to zero proved absolutely no tracking issues, once again on both windage as well as elevation controls. You know, I just love good quality optics. Well, how did we do on the review of the Steiner 4-16? Let's have a little recap. In fact, let's see what Steiner themselves has to say about their scopes. The ideal choice for tactical operations. This scope is well suited for long-range target engagement. Well, that's straight, short, and to the point. I think they've accomplished that goal and done it in style. If you'd like to have a look at the scope yourself, at your range, just give us a call or an email and we'll arrange to come and see you. At the prices that Adamson is able to get these scopes for, we actually think they're probably the closest thing to a bargain that there is right now in a really forward-looking, well-designed scope. They've done their homework on the controls. It shows. You've also got the pedigree of an optics company that's been doing this for a long time. I think it's a pretty safe bet. In fact, I've already got mine on order. I can't wait, and we'll have a look then at the 5-25 with the MSR reticle in the next review. Until then, train hard, be safe. Thank you.